Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of the Diamond Dudes. My name is Rob Bates. I am the founder and editor of the Jewelry Wire, and I am with
I'm Avi Kravitz. I'll go first.
No, with Avi. Okay.
Avi Kravitz, founder of the Diamond Press, and the gentleman on my left is...
I'm Edahn, another dude in the diamond industry.
Yeah. We messed up the intro. That's the easiest part of the show, and we screwed it up. But
from here, it's going to get rough. We're going to be on rough water.
Yeah.
So I got to ask you guys a question.
Yes.
Are you continuing to get good feedback about let's talk about ourselves.
Very nice. Very lovely.
Really? Okay, so somebody walked up to me at Las Vegas and said, "Oh, I love it. I love it. What's one question I got to ask you? I got to tell you the guys from Botswana. That thing that Avi Kravitz said about the president."
Oh.
And so let's remind our audience that Avi said that it's not dignified for. Am I saying this correctly? Am I fairly representing what you said, that it's not dignified?
You can use the word
it was beneath his. You said it was beneath his office.
So I get it. So the response is this: people in Botswana heard it, and I don't know what the president was told, but people got a chuckle in Botswana.
So. Well, I'm glad they're listening, and I'm glad we made an impression at least.
Yes. And mind you, he was not there. He missed his Vegas trip.
Right.
He
was planning to do that?
I don't think he canceled his plans based on what Avi said, but you never know, right?
I think he may.
I'm sure it's because of Avi.
Yes. Well, I would have liked to.
Well, I mean, it brings up a point on how the producer countries are positioning themselves, and I wasn't in Vegas either this year, and maybe that's why he didn't.
Presidential of you
beneath your office.
But my understanding is that there was a more sort of structured presentation of the producer countries in Vegas. You know, Botswana in particular. Angola, I know, had a presence there. Rob, you wrote about it this week. What was your impression on their positioning within that market?
So the House of Botswana had this similar thing, and I had a interview with Al Cook and with Minister Kenawendo. Namibia had this kind of conference, and then they had a later panel, and then Angola had a panel, which I did not attend, unfortunately, but they had something else. And so they all had nice booths. I mean, I think it's nice. I think it's great that they're talking more for themselves and presenting this information more for themselves, as I wrote today, and I still believe. I think at some point it becomes a little repetitious and kind of preaching to the choir and preaching the same thing over and over again. And I think it is important for them to have a trade presence and for them to talk to people in the trade. And actually, I did a lab-grown panel on Saturday, and I would say maybe at least 10 people were from producer countries. So they want to understand and they want to know what's going on, which is great. I think you have to be very mindful of who your audience is. And it's important that you not necessarily just talk to the same people who agree that diamonds are beneficial to these countries or can be beneficial to these countries, but to the outside world. So that's, again, I think it's, I think it's very nice. I enjoy meeting them, and the Angola gave me this cool fan and a handkerchief, and but I think in the end, it's really we're not.
For interrupting.
Yes,
I think that you're looking at it you should be looking at it at a strategic level. All three countries made a strategic decision. It's not a coincidence. These are companies vying for De Beers. They want at least part of the stake. These are countries that are, at least two of them, Botswana and Namibia are making a lot of money. I mean, it's an important source of income for them. And Angola is in many ways a very independent country in terms of the diamond trade.
Yeah, I
And
was actually they gave out a pamphlet, and I was very surprised that diamonds are only 2% of Angola's GDP, which is
yeah, they have
obviously
oil, they have
much
lumber.
smaller
I
Well,
than
mean,
oil is very highly
yeah,
weighted.
yeah. No,
So
I
you
mean,
take
it's a
away oil
very
and diamonds go
resource
up.
rich. It's a very resource rich country, kind of like Russia. They have, or Canada, that has practically everything. But they want to play a bigger role in the diamond industry. They want to have their own exchange. They want to have, they already have polishing facilities. They want more. They want to be a trading center. They want to play a role. And as such, one of the things they need to do, and I think it's a very smart thing of them to do, and that is to being present in the market, meeting everybody as much as possible, because they know that JCK is a great place to meet traders, manufacturers, site holders, retailers, understand the market. I can tell you that I was asked by all of them. Botswana already knows me fairly well, but Namibia and Angola were very keen to understand what is happening on the retail market, and they asked me a lot of questions. So there was something very wise, and clearly this is something that is planned. They knew who they're sending out there, and in that regard, I think they're doing something that will only help them in the long run.
Well, let me go on record this time in saying that I think it's it's absolutely essential that they engage with retailers, American retailers, and I would say that's their primary objective for
I agree.
Attending the Vegas shows. The site holders and the trade they can engage with in other platforms and channels. But the show, the JCK in particular, is essential for them to engage with retailers, and it's not
yeah,
about.
I don't know how much they did, but
Well,
great.
that I think is the underlying point of what I said in the last episode regarding the president, that it's not his role to sit with retail jewelers and talk about Botswana. There should be a whole team out there only focused on that in Vegas. And so as I said, I wasn't there. But that's the Vegas opportunity for these producer countries. They want to tell their story, and their story is the incredible work that diamonds and contribution that diamonds do for make to those countries, particularly Botswana. And they want retailers to tell that story to consumers, and this is the prime opportunity to do that. So that was really my point. That there's no other reason to go to Vegas but to engage with retail jewelers in particular. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with you that it's needed. That definitely talking with retailers is the right way to go in terms of understanding the mindset of retailers, what are their problems, how they can address it, etc. Maybe the tactic, the way that they did it, the training of the people before they got there. What are the topics they should discuss? How to engage with this audience might have been a misfire, but for Angola, it's the first time. Namibia, I think, we had
the
a
second time,
very small
second time for
second
Angola.
time for Angola.
Yeah.
Namibia did it a few times. Botswana is definitely already well versed in that, and you can see the ministers going from place to place, and there are cameras and people running after her. So Botswana is already doing it well. And it's just a matter of experience, Think about the first times that we went to JCK.
I
And
can't
yeah,
remember.
and Russia used to do it, of course, back in the
Yes,
day, and
and that
Canada to some extent used to do it. So
yeah,
Argyle used to do it.
and that's the extent of where the market is going. It's going to be Angola, it's going to be De Beers, it's going to be Alrosa, and those are the three major forces for us.
Well, let me ask you something about their presentation, because I think in particular for Botswana, the next step is to actually offer them. What is, to your understanding, the House of Botswana? Are they developing a brand out of that? Is it going to be something that retailers can partner them on, or is it just a marketing sort of efforts to get the
It's
name
actually a
Botswana
good
out there?
question. I don't know. I know that they wanted in the past. The previous administration, the Masisi administration, was gung ho on that. De Beers did not like it. I remember Bruce sitting and telling them nobody knows where Botswana is on the map, let alone that it's in Africa. But I don't know what their thoughts are today,
Yeah.
I
where they want
think,
to go.
yeah, I mean, clearly they want to, they feel they have a marketable story, or uh, they've heard they've had a marketable story, or people have told them they have a marketable story. So I mean, obviously, Botswana will play a crucial role in this De Beers Origin brand that they're launching as a proprietary brand. And there was also talk of Okavango doing something as a Botswana brand. So I don't know exactly what House of Botswana means, or how that's supposed to, what people are kind of supposed to take away from that. But I do believe they want to uh, raise the profile of the country, certainly in the industry. But I think a lot of people in the industry know it already. But I think
But
that's one of the goals.
when we say they need to be engaging with retail jewelers, what do they want from retail jewelers? They a jeweler can't claim that
Sympathy.
every diamond that they're presenting has its origin in Botswana. So my feeling is that they need to present them with some sort of a program that they can sell to retailers, that retailers can partner with them and tell their wonderful story. And maybe that's the next phase. These programs are touch and go sometimes, and very tricky and complicated. Just ask De Beers with their Forever Mark program. But when we talk about strategic goals and planning, I'm wondering how does Botswana take that next step in their sort of branding of the country?
Yeah, and they were very big on this running thing, which they give out, I think, a diamond medal for some running competition, which
Right.
The
sports
relay.
kind of goes over
Yeah.
my
Well,
head.
they
So
got. I mean, they won national international recognition, and I think it's more an issue of national pride than diamond industry. But I
If,
mean, to
if
go
I'm
to
not,
the
if I'm not
United States and say we have great athletes, you know.
I think they're hosting the African Athletics Championships or something to that effect, and so part of that whole
Yeah,
hosting
yeah.
is the medals. But sort of changing course a bit, you guys were there in full force. What were your impressions of the Vegas shows in general?
I thought that it was a fabulous show for everybody. I mean, for retailers who found what they were looking for, and at I don't want to say low prices, but at very reasonable prices, because the prices are coming down. Not just gold, but jewelry as well. We saw a lot of great designs. I think it was a terrific show for jewelry manufacturers and for the diamond folks, lab and natural. And I can tell you that for a lot of service providers like myself and many others that I spoke with that are in marketing, in planning, in AI, in strategy, whatever it is, everybody walked out of the show very, very happy. I mean, far more than what I've seen in years of going to the show. So in that regard, I think it was terrific, and there were a lot more people. So I mean, the retailers had an expectation to close deals, and they came to do business. People didn't come for fun.
yeah, well, I would agree. It seemed like a very strong show, a very crowded show, a very active show, a very upbeat show. I mean, and I would agree, probably one of the most crowded shows that I've seen in a long, long time. Um, I think what was interesting, I think there's this dialogue that's kind of been going on underneath the surface, and it kind of reached the surface in Vegas a little bit about how, you know, just to give an arbitrary number, that diamonds under, let's say, 2 carats, natural diamonds under 2 carats are not really selling that well and are very weak. And, can the industry survive on just the higher end goods, which I think a lot of people feel is going to be very challenging. So I think that dialogue was definitely more out in the open. And it was, I know Rappaport was going on, oh, you should only sell goods to rich people and stuff like that. But I don't think people find that a very practical uh, plan unless unless the high end goes so strong. And, along those lines, I will say that, all the stuff about the K-shaped economy, I mean, we see it so much in the statistics and the statistics you put out and the statistics the Edge puts out. It really is so bifurcated in that so many items, the average price is going up and the unit sales are going down. And that's kind of the general
Yeah.
tale of the jewelry industry. Lab grown is probably the only exception where
Yeah.
it's more of a unit sales increase than an average price increase.
We tend to look at it very much from a diamond or jewelry industry perspective, but I think there's an element that is at play here, and that is what is happening to a very wide demographic in the American consumer market. I just ran into some research released by the Federal Bank of New York, where they're talking about the delinquencies and paying credit in auto loans, in mortgages. And if you think of the typical, say, bridal buyer, right? The bridal consumer, they still have student loans. They definitely have car loans, especially if they live in California. They're looking forward towards buying their first house if they're getting married. And all of these things are elements that impact what they are willing to spend. And in the case of jewelry, they'd rather buy lab grown than natural. So there's an element here that I don't know how much the industry will be able to address.
Yeah,
Right?
and I would add something
External force.
on top of that.
Yeah.
With AI and technology and just generally you living in a time of constant disruption, you can't say, okay, I'm going to be a writer. You can even say, I could be a doctor, that's going to give me a steady income for the rest of my life. I mean, it might, but I think I think things are a lot less certain than they were. So the middle class customer, the kind that used to go to Zales and K and buy a $4,000 natural diamond engagement ring, I think that customer is getting squeezed by a lot of these things that you mentioned: student loans, gas prices, uncertainty about the
Absolutely.
future. And I think that's really where a problem. That's why you get this K,
Yeah.
right?
But Robert, as the representative of the United States on this podcast, um, it seems that there's still sort of robust spending in the US, and is that just because they're spending more on consumers are spending more on their sort of day to day, but just generally in retail seems to be growing still.
Yeah, I mean, consumer debt is up as was mentioned, and especially in jewelry, it's definitely high end. That's selling predominantly. But I think it's the roof hasn't fallen in yet, but I think people are definitely getting squeezed. And
Yeah.
I talked to one jeweler who has a lot of low income customers, and he said it's brutal. He said he's not doing well at all. So I
Because
think
they're buying less.
because they're buying less, yeah, because that's the toughest part of the market.
Yeah. We at
So
Tenoris are seeing a sharp drop in the $500 and below price points. And anything, I mean, gold, lab, whatever it is. In the one area, actually, pardon me, lab is the only one where there's an increase.
Yeah.
Um,
But people in America do like to spend and do like to shop, and I think it's very hard to get them out of that habit, even when they have these kind of crushing debt. But
Yeah.
I think
Well,
I think it's an issue, and a lot of the people like Walmart and Target. I mean, these are fundamentally, these are discounters. So I think it's not a great economy. It's not the worst economy I've ever seen. 2008 and
yeah.
2009 was probably the
By
worst,
the way,
but
2008 started with low-income people stopping to pay their mortgages. So if we get looking, it's very possible. I'm not saying this with hope, right? But it's very possible that we're looking at a crisis that the first signs of it are, these delinquencies in payment. It's not big yet.
yeah,
I
well,
mean,
I
those
I mean,
delinquencies,
yeah, I
but
mean,
they're
the crisis for the jewelry industry is that middle income household has diminished, the market for that those bread and butter goods, as you mentioned, Rob, below 2 carats, that was the heart and of the industry for forever, and
Mhm.
that's moved to lab grown, and what I think we've spoken about it before, that it's sort of leaving jewelers with a choice whether to sort of lean into the higher value premium goods, or shift or double down on lab grown and lower price points in general. What I think is quite interesting is a question if a company with a sort of a broad range of brands and offerings can do both. And it seems to me that Brilliant Earth has been trying to do that for some time, I think with limited success. And it seems to me that Signet Jewelers is trying to do that as well now.
In a
For
big
me,
way.
in their recent earnings, I picked up a change in tone from Signet in their first quarter earnings call. I'm sort of pivoting back to natural. They acquired the Clear Cut, and trying to position Blue Nile as a more sort of premium offering, whereas we've kind of seen them struggle to stimulate revenue growth really as they focused on K and Zales and sort of added more lab grown into that mix. And so I don't know if what are your thoughts? Can Signet and can these companies juggle
So,
both ends of
so
the market?
Signet, when the current CEO got into the job, immediately went on lab grown because it was, they felt it was a moneymaker. But at the end of the day, it didn't help them out, especially didn't help their share price. But what we're seeing today, and I want to add to what you said in terms of the brands, the internal brands, and that is that they're really pushing Jared towards higher price points, and it's a whole package, right? You have to train the sales staff, etc. So that all that is happening. The purchase of Clear Cut for the goal of the concierge service is an incredible idea. There's one, I think, shortcoming that we see at Signet, and I think that they've been struggling with that for many years now, and that is that they do not have a brand that is very high end. They do not have a Tiffany. They do not have a Harry Winston. So if it was watches, they do not have anything like that. And they had the opportunity with that with Diamonds Direct, and Diamonds Direct is just so lab grown oriented these days, especially because it's catered towards college, people in their mid 20s to mid 30s. The result is that they're missing something at the very top. And I think they're pushing up Jared in that direction and bringing in Olivia and her husband to sort of try to break that glass ceiling for the company is an important move. I don't know if it will be successful. I hope so, but that's I think where they're going right
Yeah,
now.
I mean, I think a lot of people, when they mentioned they're taking Blue Nile upscale, it didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, first of all, Blue Nile always had a relatively affluent clientele, but it was clientele that was, and this is the important distinction, they were always seeking bargains. They wanted to get the best price, right?
Yeah.
So they would buy a $50,000 diamond, $60,000 diamond, but they wanted to know they were getting it cheaper than at the local jeweler. So that was kind of the Blue Nile positioning for years and years. So they when they started first talking about concierge, it didn't, to me at least, I wasn't exactly sure what they were talking about. Now that they've brought in the Clear Cut and Olivia and Kyle, I guess it makes a little bit more sense. It's not. I would say. I mean, it's interesting. So, I mean, in the last few years, after Signet brought Blue Nile, they put a lot of lab grown on there. So, what once was considered kind of a higher end jeweler, kind of uh, went down a little bit. They mentioned to me that I think it was 39% of their purchases, the average price was $10,000 or something like that, and that. From what I understand, used to be the general average price of Blue Nile. So $10,000 used to be the overall average price of Blue Nile. Now it's 39% of Blue Nile. But yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you that they want a high end name because that's where the market is, that's where the money is. And, Jared is not necessarily, it can go a little bit more up. And I think one of the original visions for Jared was it to be a more upscale type of name. But I think at this point, with Jared being in malls and stuff like that, is not necessarily as suited. So I think they're using Blue Nile as this guinea pig to bring it upscale. I mean, it's hard to do upscale online. It's not necessarily something that lends itself. I mean, upscale, you think of Tiffany's and Harry Winston in this kind of, very nice
You need a
service. And I
setting.
guess
I
that's
agree
what
with
they're,
you. You need a setting. You need a physical setting. Yeah.
yeah. And I
Well,
think that's what they're trying to recreate with this
that's maybe
concierge thing. And
that's what the clear cuts
right.
brings
And
to Blue Nile.
they are saying they're going to remodel and redo their stores. So that's something. But yeah, I guess they just, they were looking, where could we go more upscale? And I guess they said, okay, we'll just try with Blue Nile. But what's interesting is, Blue Nile and James Allen were heavy, heavy, heavy sellers of lab grown online. And, that's lab grown online is a tough market. It's very competitive. Right. And they're just kind of, they're essentially bowing out. I mean, they said James Allen's going to be offering some, and James Allen will be folded into Blue Nile. But, that's kind of a big space in that market. And I told the story in one of my newsletters. I was talking to a jeweler and I said, how come so many customers come into your store looking for lab grown? Like, what's the reason? He said, Blue Nile and James Allen. When you search, the first thing comes up and they're selling lab grown. So the fact that they aren't, I mean, it's a big opportunity for Brilliant Earth, obviously, and for some of the other names. But I think I at least talked to at least one person in the lab grown industry who said this is kind of a blow to us. This is a problem for us because that was a major um, they, were big presences in the market selling lab grown. So
Yeah.
How is it a blow? I didn't understand that.
well, just because they were such big sellers and they were such big advertisers, so that when people would Google how to buy a diamond, you would get Blue Nile,
From a
James Allen.
marketing point of view.
Yeah, from a marketing perspective, yeah.
From the opportunity is that it leaves a gap for them to fill.
Folks at James Allen told
Yeah.
me a long time ago.
And just the fact that they're so efficient at moving goods.
Yeah, that's fair.
No, James Allen told me many, many years ago that the majority of their focus is on online advertising. Brilliant Earth said in one of their reports that their marketing costs are very high and they were thinking of maybe scaling it back a little bit. So it's all about, how do you capture a customer online?
Well, I think Olivia and Kyle have done something unprecedented in that
Yes.
sense. Their use of
They
social
created a
media
niche, there's no doubt about it.
to bring jewelry sales is off the charts. I think it really
Yeah.
and
Yeah, that
we'll
was
see if
clearly
they can
one of the
scale
things.
that
Kudos to
with,
them. I mean, here they are. They started something with an idea 10 years ago, and now they had a classic exit, right? So, and they're going to stay with the company. So, they then it's not that they're going to be bored at home, right?
Yeah.
So I salute them both for a very hard job and successful turn
Yeah,
everything.
and I mean, we'll see how it goes. Uh, they're going to be in a corporate culture which they have not been in before.
And that's a
We
big
were
change,
joking
but
that I'm
you
now
know,
out of the corporate culture, and they are in one now. But
but that's an opportunity, and
yes,
these both of them are very smart people.
yeah, and they're
It's
very
an
nice people.
opportunity.
I
They're
like them
going
a
to
lot.
learn a different way of running a business. They're going to learn about thinking of very large scale. They're going to find themselves with a lot of new knowledge in managing themselves and a business, and I think it's only a matter of time until they will come out with a new venture and something that the diamond industry will hopefully benefit from.
Well, it's also a bit of a challenge for Signet, which to my mind is sort of the ultimate corporation within the industry.
Yeah.
Maybe De
N-
Beers
And now they
competes,
have two stars
but
on their hands,
well,
huh?
yeah. So how do they give them the creative freedom to continue with their journey
It's always a
or do they have to tick all the boxes that Signet
They have to
require?
run it by somebody. It can't just
Yeah,
be like, "Hey,
I
I'm
mean,
putting this out." Yeah.
yeah. So that'll be interesting to watch, I think.
They definitely mixed it up as far as lab grown, uh, and Signet is probably one of the biggest lab grown sellers in the world. So there could be some interesting tension
Yeah,
there.
but you
But
know
I
what?
hope,
I think
but I like them a lot, and I wish them.
Signet
Yeah, but
is definitely making a push towards natural. De Beers is very strongly supporting them in that approach. So the connection
And to be
is not
fair, I
going.
mean, JK's predecessor, Jenna, also made a pitch towards natural, or was supposed to, or
Yeah,
tried to, and
I'm not sure. I felt it was a bit tentative. I think she saw the growth in lab grown that it was offering. But I think we also got to remember that consumers don't know the name Signet. They know the name Kay and Jared and Blue Nile almost as separate entities. So it's a matter of managing lab grown and natural within the corporate structure, but they can still focus at K on selling lab grown, and
yeah.
we talk trade speak, but that's not what they're marketing.
yeah, I think it's like LVMH has.
If I had any advice for Signet, I'll say find a Tiffany to buy. Two, separate lab grown from natural. Have a brand for this and a brand for that. And hire me to consult you.
Oh, there you go. uh,
Kidding.
at several $1,000,000 a year.
Yeah.
Um,
No.
take out two.
Why are you throwing numbers? Don't lock me in a corner.
$500,000. As long as we're talking lab grown, do we want to talk about? I feel this topic has been talked a little bit to death, but I know
What,
there's been
Russia?
a little news about nomenclature and what the African diamond producers want to do and what Russia
So what
just
are
did.
your thoughts about it?
My thoughts.
Yeah.
Um, it's not really my thing. I think you should make a positive, affirmative case for
But
your
thinking.
product rather than. I can understand. Obviously, if you force somebody to call something synthetic, it's probably going to hurt. I get that.
Yeah.
And
I think
it's not like either side is all that innocent in this.
I think the question
Clearly.
is, why did they do that? Right? Because it was, we both, I think Avi did too. We looked at this is a massive document talking about medicine and how do you talk with retailers. And I mean, how do manufacturers talk? What do they tell retailers? What retailers tell consumers? This is a very wide encompassing decision on the part of the Russian authorities. And I'm wondering, I guess that in the process
And
they
we should
spoke.
mention that they're mandating that they be called synthetic.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but so obviously, this is actually the point I was about to make. They obviously spoke with players in each market, so medicine, etc. And these guys put forward their I don't know, let's call it wish list. and calling lab grown, and lab grown isn't very common in Russia. I mean, it used to be grown there, but it's not a big thing in Russia. But the bottom line is, they made I guess, a request, they being Alrosa or anybody else in the diamond industry in Russia, saying, look, we have a competition, we need to fight it some way. And we're seeing this in other countries. I mean, the high-end companies in France put a lot of pressure on the French government to sort of belittle lab
What
grown.
high-end company do you think that was?
In Russia, in
In
France,
France, yes.
in France, it was LVMH.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was Kering actually. I thought Kering
Oh,
was
Kering?
yeah, that was my
You know what? I'm
but
sure they had a
both.
discussion between them
Yeah.
and sent the lobbyists forward,
Why this is an interesting story, I think, is because the big prize for the natural diamond industry is the United States, and so with the African producers and President Boko also saying in an interview that he wants to push this in the United States, this stricter distinction between natural and lab. And I had a brief back and forward with Sarah Yude from the Jewelers Vigilance Committee. And I asked a question, and she mentioned that the jewelry guide of the Federal Trade Commission is generally sort of reviewed or up for review every 10 years, and that would be in 2028. And I'm just wondering if there's the sort of political will or trade will to push this agenda in the United States, and it would require the US trade to sort of start lobbying on this issue. And that's why I thought it was interesting. Russia's a small market, of course, but it's kind of sets a precedent, that maybe the US can build on. And I have a feeling that De Beers might adopt this, and the Signets of the world, if they are, doubling down on natural again, that they might take this on as an issue with the eye for the FTC to sort of rejig its approach to lab grown.
Well, if you notice that De Beers will use the phrase synthetic lab grown diamonds, that's kind of their automatic go-to phrase. They don't call them synthetics. They don't call them lab growns. They say synthetic lab grown. I think obviously American politics is very
So you take the hammer and you just
yeah.
go down on it again and again.
Right.
It's synthetic and lab grown. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say American politics is very unpredictable right now, so I'm not going to make any predictions. I'm not sure what's going on at the FTC. It used to be a very kind of clear decision-making process, and now we see all sorts of decisions made kind of on the fly, and you don't necessarily understand it. That said, the case law, allowing, which goes back to Tom Chatham's father, allowing them to be called created emeralds, and then eventually, I guess, lab-grown and lab-created emeralds goes back decades. And people think that the FTC in 2018 changed it. It really didn't change much. It said synthetic is no longer recommended, but it didn't say you can't say it. It didn't say so the idea that they would take a phrase that recently they said we're no longer recommending it and make it mandatory, to me seems like a long shot. That said, U.S. politics is in a very odd place right now, so I'm I don't want to predict,
tell you,
but
in the diamond industry, among miners, there was a lot of criticism over how what is it called, DPA, the diamond producers, the earlier version of NDC, and the way they handle it, and the discussions with the FTC. I heard some conversations among them about it, and I mean, miners were pissed off, to say the least. I mean, in a polite way, but
Well, they were all members of the DPA.
yeah,
So
but
it was their organization.
the DPA represented the industry, and members of the DPA are those who spoke with the U.S. government and let's just say it didn't, the dice didn't roll the way they hoped for.
No, it didn't go well. I would say at the time, the DPA didn't have that much of a U.S. presence, right? So right now there would be, at the time you had people from kind of overseas making this case, which probably did not go as well as you had, at the time you had this lab grown association. I
No,
forgot
no,
what the name,
they hired
IGDA,
they
with this,
hired local
yeah, with,
lobbyists, and Jean-Marc was based in New York at the time, so
yeah, but he's from Belgium, and, you had, IGDA, which was a guy, I think he's from the Midwest, Michigan, I believe, coming in and kinda making the case that, this was, and at the time, there's a lot more American growers, so you could kinda make the case, "Okay, this is an,
yeah.
American,
Diamond Foundry
industry that you're."
was the one pushing it on the other side.
Yeah. So I think at the time. That said, aside from some minor symbolic things, and I make this case a lot, and no, everybody seems to disagree with me. The actual guides as far as what people are required to do didn't change. Now the industry lost some symbolic battles in that the definition of diamond, they removed the word natural from it, so that was kind of a big deal on a symbolic level. But as far as what's required of you, um, it wasn't. You still have to call them lab grown. And if you choose to use another term, and people have used all sorts of kind of fancy, fanciful terms that we're not. They just kind of made up, like above ground and stuff like that. That I guess the FTC felt were not clear and did not communicate as well. I mean, you can still
Especially
get
since you have
a letter or
aluminum that is
whatever.
above ground.
The bigger impact would be if there's regulation governing the use of the 4 Cs. I mean, the Russia regulation is, it prohibits
They're
the use
adapting the
of
GIA
carats.
position,
You
yeah.
know, you got to use grams for synthetic diamonds. And I can definitely see a scenario where, you mentioned the GIA, that the GIA gets on board with pushing this, that sort of regulation
But
in the
but
United
but
States.
uh,
That will be a game changer, frankly.
if the GIA makes that case, you're saying to
Yeah,
the.
well, I can see a scenario where the GIA would come on board to make that case. They're moving in that direction anyway. Certainly with color and clarity.
Yeah, my
Um,
my sense is that it's a long shot, that this has been going on for at least a decade, and it's kind of hard to reverse the trajectory. So I don't see it happening.
Yeah. By the
I
way,
understand.
the term that consumers in the United States use is none of the terms that we use in the industry. You know what's the most popular term for lab grown in the United States?
What,
Lab diamonds.
man? Well, that's. I think it's definitely what the trade use.
I mean in
You
multiple
sell lab. You
more
sell
yeah.
lab. Yeah.
So
So, yeah, my sense is it's a long shot. I don't see it happening, but hey, yeah,
Pay
you never
attention.
know. And I think it would. Look, if those Russian regulations are definitely meant to make lab grown diamonds look bad. I mean, there's no question. You have to call it. You can't even call it
it,
polished. You have to call it polished rough.
yeah.
And I
I gotta
mean,
say something, and I believe it will not be popular in many quarters in the West, the Western world, and that is that Alrosa is doing an excellent job at anything and everything that the diamond industry wants to achieve. Be it energy conservation, be it carbon control, be it traceability. They were a forerunner. They were ahead of De Beers in many ways in the sense of traceability. And they're doing a lot of things from the perspective of the natural diamond industry that I could only wish upon other miners and other players in the market. Now I know, Russia is easy to hate, but if we're talking about let's measure just Alrosa on what it's doing, I think they're doing a fabulous job.
I think they were a respected company, and there are many reasons for the war in Ukraine to end. That would be a fantastic thing, and I think it
Yeah.
would. among those many reasons, it would help the
let go
diamond
of
industry.
Alrosa.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, Alrosa's,
Free the
for a long
bear.
time put an emphasis on their, ESG programs.
And what's amazing is they still do, even though half the world
Right.
considers them a
Right,
pariah.
but
Absolutely.
the thing is that, I mean, so they put out press releases about the awards that they've won, etc. Within the Russian sort of ESG community, I guess, and it's not to say that it's not happening elsewhere. It's very difficult to measure because I think maybe De Beers is not they're not winning an award in Botswana for their environmental conservation because it's a small place, but it's not. It's very difficult to make those comparisons. But I agree with you, and I do, as doing what we do, I do miss Alrosa's information that they put out. They put out great data about their operations, about the markets, and that's kind of lacking in the industry coverage, I think. So
The same strategy as Namibia, Botswana, etc., but in a very different way.
yeah.
Okay,
Well,
Okay, what else do we have on the list?
I think that's it. Let's wrap it up.
That's it. We're done.
We've got a list.
Unless you want to talk about something else. You want to?
Well,
You have a good time in Vegas? What you do? You do anything fun?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't go to a lot of the evening events, the concert, the etc. But it was, for me, it was a very good show. I think I'm not unusual in that sense. And there's always good lunches.
Well,
Prospective clients.
You guys are wild, man. What did you do?
Well,
Rob?
what happens in
What was the
Vegas?
highlight?
As my
Special
gray
point of
hair
view.
can tell, it's all about running around.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay. You want to plug our various ventures?
Avi,
Sure.
your latest report.
Check me out on the Diamond Press. Check out my new venture, which is the Diamond Executive Club, and the report that I put out on the value of De Beers, and that's within the Executive Club framework on my website, thediamondpress.com.
You see, Rob, while we went to JCK, he has a club.
There you go. He was hanging out in the club.
Just pointing that out.
He was in the club.
And it gets pretty wild there, I tell you that.
What happens in the Diamond Executive Club stays there.
Yeah.
I have a newsletter called The Jewelry Wire at thejewelrywire.com, which has both free tiers and paid tiers, and we're getting a lot of paid subscriptions. We're getting ads, and I think it comes out just about every day, and I'm very proud of it. We have a lot of great information, and I hope you guys all check it out.
I'm a partner in Tenoris, so we collect data from retailers, and we have the ability to help manufacturers, retailers, and consumers alike to find consumers is less of an issue, but to find a way to improve their business through finding the blind spot in what they're doing, etc. Knowledge through data.
Okay, cool. And we're at
what a team. Hey,
cool. And I should mention, being the professional podcast that we are, we have a email, diamonddudespodcast@gmail.com. That's diamonddudespodcast@gmail.com. One of these days we may even get a website. You never know. Whether this thing is, it's going to the top.
Maybe
don't tempt me, Rob.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Have a great day.
Take care.
Take care. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.